All right.
Take a deep breath.
All right. I lost my place. Now, where was I?
27.
25:7?
And four.
When Paul arrived, the Jewish leaders from Jerusalem gathered around and made many serious accusations they couldn't prove.
We're not in the right.
No, not in the right
Verse
spot.
20.
After 7 years. Verse 27.
After 2 years went in the way.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Okay, I found it. And because Felix wanted to gain favor with the Jewish people, he left Paul in prison. 3 days after Festus arrived in Caesarea to take over his new responsibilities, he left for Jerusalem, where the leading priests and other Jewish leaders met with him and made their accusations against Paul. They asked Festus as a favor to transfer Paul to Jerusalem, planning to ambush and kill him on the way. But Festus replied that Paul was at Caesarea and he himself would be returning there soon. So he said, "Those of you in authority can return with me. If Paul has done anything wrong, you can make your accusations." About 8 or 10 days later, Festus returned to Caesarea, and on the following day he took his seat in court and ordered that Paul be brought in. When Paul arrived, the Jewish leaders from Jerusalem gathered around and made many serious accusations they couldn't prove. Paul denied the charges. "I am not guilty of any crime against the Jewish laws or temple or the Roman government," he said. Then Festus, wanted to please the Jews, asked him, "Are you willing to go to Jerusalem and stand trial before me there?" But Paul replied, "No, this is the official Roman court, so I ought to be tried right here. You know very well that I am not guilty of harming the Jews. If I have done something worthy of death, I don't refuse to die. But if I am innocent, no one has the right to turn me over to these men to kill me. I appeal to Caesar." Paul had a way with words, right? I appeal to Caesar. He knew if they took him back, they were going to kill him.
Right.
He didn't want to go with them. Nobody would want to go with them. They were nasty. They hated him. They hated him. Festus conferred with his advisors, then replied, "Very well, you have appealed to Caesar, and to Caesar you will go." A few days later, King Agrippa arrived with his sister Bernice to pay their respects to Festus. During their stay of the several days, Festus discussed Paul's case with the king. "There is a prisoner here," he told him, "whose case was left for me by Felix. When I was in Jerusalem, the leading priests and Jewish elders pressed charges against him and asked me to condemn him. I pointed out to them that Roman law does not convict people without a trial. They must be given an opportunity to confront their accusers and defend themselves. When his accusers came here for the trial, I didn't delay. I called the case the very next day and ordered Paul brought in. But the accusations made against him weren't any of the crimes I expected. Instead, it was something about their religion and a dead man named Jesus, who Paul insists is alive. I was at a loss to know how to investigate these things, so I asked him whether he would be willing to stand trial on these charges in Jerusalem." See, just imagine, when their eyes aren't opened and they hear stuff like that about the guy that's dead but he's alive, they think he's crazy. They think he's nuts. What's wrong with this guy? There's something wrong with him. Because their eyes are closed. They don't see what he sees. Willing to stand trial. Verse 21, "But Paul appealed to have his case decided by the emperor, so I ordered that he be held in custody until I could arrange. I sent him to send him to Caesar. I'd like to hear the man myself," Agrippa said. And Festus replied, "You will tomorrow." This is great. This next chapter is really, really good. So the next day, Agrippa and Bernice arrived at the auditorium with great pomp, accompanied by military officers and prominent men of the city. Festus ordered that Paul be brought in. Then Festus said, "King Agrippa and all who are here, this is the man whose death is demanded by all the Jews, both here and in Jerusalem. But in my opinion, he has done nothing to deserving death." He's talking about unbelievers telling them they had nothing, but believers in God wanted to kill him. Religious people. However, since he appealed his case to the emperor, I have decided to send him to Rome. But what shall I write the emperor? For there is no clear charge against him. So I have brought him before all of you, and especially you, King Agrippa, so that after we examine him, I might have something to write. For it makes no sense to send a prisoner to the emperor without specifying the charges against him. They couldn't find anything wrong with him. And Agrippa said to Paul, you may speak in your defense. So Paul, gesturing with his hand, started his defense. I am fortunate, King Agrippa. He gave him a compliment. King Agrippa, that you are one hearing my defense today against all these accusations made by the Jewish leaders. For I know you're an expert on all Jewish customs and controversies. Now please listen to me patiently. As the Jewish leaders are well aware, I was given a thorough Jewish training from my earliest childhood among my own people in Jerusalem. If they would admit it, they know that I have been a member of the Pharisees, the strictest sect of our religion. Now I am on trial because of my hope in the fulfillment of God's promise made to our ancestors. In fact, that is why the 12 tribes of Israel zealously worship God night and day, and they share the same hope I have. Yet, Your Majesty, they accuse me for having this hope. Why does it seem incredible to any of you that God can raise the dead? I used to believe that I ought to do everything I could to oppose the very name of Jesus, the Nazarene. Indeed, I did just that in Jerusalem. Authorized by the leading priest, he's telling his story. I caused many believers there to be sent to prison, and I cast my vote against them when they were condemned to death. Many times I had them punished in the synagogues to get them to curse Jesus. I was so violently opposed to them that I even chased them down in foreign cities. So Paul was on the other side at one time, remember, right?
Yeah,
Before he went to
saw.
Damascus. He was with them.
Yeah.
It's like Hitler.
One day, I was on such a mission to Damascus, armed with the authority and commission of the leading priests. About noon, Your Majesty, I was on the road. A light from heaven, brighter than the sun, shone down on me and my companions. Now, he said, a light from heaven, brighter than the sun. Now, you know how bright the sun is, right? Now, how much brighter could that have been than the sun? Much brighter than the sun. So he's seen something. Much brighter than the sun shone down on me and my companions. We all fell down, and I heard a voice saying to me in Aramaic, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? It is useless for you to fight against my will. Who are you, Lord? I asked. He already knew who he was. Called him Lord. The Lord replied, I'm Jesus, the one you're persecuting. Now get to your feet, for I have appeared to you to appoint to you as my servant and witness. You are to tell the world what you have seen and what I will show you in the future. And I will rescue you from both your own people and the Gentiles. You see it? Jesus told them that he would rescue them. See it? I will rescue you from both your own people, the Jews who were looking for him then, and the Gentiles. Yes, I am sending you to the Gentiles to open their eyes, that's us, so they may turn from darkness to light, that's us, and from the power of Satan to God.
Yeah.
All right? We had the power of Satan, now we have the power of God.
Amen.
Thank you, Jesus, right?
Amen.
Then they will receive forgiveness for their sins, which we did, and be given a place among God's people when we are set apart by faith in me, which is Jesus. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Look at verse 19. And so King Agrippa, I obeyed that vision from heaven. I preached first to those in Damascus and in Jerusalem and throughout all Judea, and also the Gentiles that all must repent of their sins and turn to God. Repent of their sins and turn to God. And prove they have, listen to this one, and prove they have changed by the good things they do. Wow, they had to give some evidence, right? Faith without good deeds is dead, right, in James?
Yep.
How can you say you have faith and you can't have good deeds? You can't. If they go together. by the good things they do. Some Jews arrested me in the temple for preaching this, and they tried to kill me. But God has protected me right up to this present time, so I can testify to everyone, from the least to the greatest. So Paul knew that God was with him wherever he went.
Amen.
Just like God is with us wherever we go.
Amen.
I teach nothing except what the prophets and Moses said would happen, that the Messiah would suffer and be the first to rise from the dead, and in this way announce God's light to the Jews and Gentiles alike. Thank God Paul followed the command. Right? He didn't have to.
Right.
He could have refused to do it.
Thank God.
Let me tell you something. When God calls you to serve Him, thank God He calls you to serve Him. You know, just be aware that if you don't do it, that you're going to take something away from somebody else that He called you to do.
Yeah.
You have an awesome testimony and a reward in heaven waiting for you. And you have to answer for it anyway,
Yep.
by rejecting it. Right. So, verse 24. Suddenly, Festus shouted, "Paul, you're insane. Too much study has made you crazy." But Paul replied, you gotta love it, "I am not insane, most excellent Festus. What I am saying is the sober truth. And King Agrippa knows about these things. I speak boldly, for I am sure these events are all familiar to him, for they were not done in a corner. King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? I know you do."
Amen.
Agrippa interrupted him. "Do you think you can persuade me to become a Christian so quickly?" See, Paul was trying to get people saved even when he was on trial.
Amen.
All right? He knew. He had a way with words because he let the Holy Spirit guide his speech. Paul replied, this is beautiful. Look what his answer was. "Quickly or not, I pray to God that both you and everyone here in this audience might become the same as I am, except for these chains." All right? God, He's going to break all the chains that held people in bondage. That's what it's saying. The king, the governor Bernice, and all the others stood and left. As they went out, they talked over it and agreed. "This man has done nothing. Hasn't done anything to deserve death or imprisonment." Then Agrippa said to Festus, "He could have been set free if he hadn't appealed to Caesar." Paul wasn't done. He was still on a mission. All right, chapter 27. We're moving right along here tonight.
Yeah. Amen.
That's good. When the time came, we set sail for Italy. Paul and several other prisoners were placed in the custody of a Roman officer named Julius, a captain in the imperial regiment. Aristarchus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, was also with us. We left on a ship whose home port was Drentinium, on the northwest coast of the province of Asia. It was scheduled to make several stops at ports along the coast of the province. The next day, when we docked at Sidon, Julius was very kind to Paul and let him go ashore to visit with friends so they could provide for his needs. He had God's favor with him wherever he was. Putting out to sea from there, we encountered strong headwinds that made it difficult to keep the ship on course, so we sailed north of Cyprus between the island and the mainland. Keeping to the open sea, we passed along the coast of Cilicia and Pamphylia, landing at Myra in the province of Lycia. There, the commanding officer found an Egyptian ship from Alexandria that was bound for Italy, and he put us on board. We had several days of slow sailing, and after great difficulty, we finally neared Cnidus. Yeah, I think the C's silent in that one. Cnidus. But the wind was against us, so we sailed across to Crete and along the sheltered coast of the island past the Cape of Salmon. We struggled along the coast with great difficulty and finally arrived at fair havens near the town of Lycia. We had lost a lot of time. The weather was becoming dangerous for sea travel because it was so late in the fall. And Paul spoke to the ship's officers about it. "Men," he said, "I believe there is trouble ahead if we go on. Shipwreck, loss of cargo, and danger of our lives as well." But the officer in charge of the prisoners listened more to the ship's captain and the owner than to Paul. And since Fairhaven was an exposed harbor, a poor place to spend the winter, most of the crew wanted to go on to Phoenix, farther up the coast of Crete, and spend the winter there. Phoenix was a good harbor with only a southwest and northwest exposure, so it wasn't as violent, the water. The storm at sea. When a light wind began blowing from the south, the sailors thought they could make it. So they pulled up anchor and sailed close for the shore of Crete. But the weather changed abruptly, and a wind of typhoon strength called a northeaster. Yeah, we had some, we had northeasters there, right?
Yeah.
Nor'easters. Caught the ship and blew it out to sea. They couldn't turn the ship into the wind, so they gave up and let it run before the gale. We sailed along the sheltered side of the small island of Corta, with great difficulty, we hoisted aboard the lifeboat being towed behind us. Then the sailors bound ropes around the hull of the ship to strengthen it. They were afraid of being driven across to the sandbars of Syrtis off the African coast. So they were lowered the sea anchor to slow the ship and were driven before the wind. The next day, as gale-force winds continued to batter the ship, the crew began throwing the cargo overboard. The following day, they even took some of the ship's gear and threw it overboard. The terrible storm raged for many days, blotting out the sun and stars. At last, all hope was gone. Until at last, all hope was gone. None had eaten for a long time. Finally, Paul called the crew together and said, "Men, you should have listened to me in the first place and not left Crete. You would have avoided all this damage and loss. But take courage. None of you will lose your lives, even though the ship will go down. For last night, an angel of God, to whom I belong and whom I serve, stood beside me." Imagine? It said, "For last night, an angel of the God, whom I belong and whom I serve, stood beside me. And he said, 'Don't be afraid, Paul, for you will surely stand trial before Caesar. What's more, God in his goodness has granted safety to everyone sailing with you. So take courage, for I believe God. It will be just as he said, but we will be shipwrecked on an island.'" Wow. They listened though, because if they got off the ship, they would have died. About midnight on the 14th night of the storm. Wow, 14th night.
Wow.
14 days on, imagine of a storm. Oh, they must have been pretty beat up. As we were being driven across the Sea of Adria, the sailors sensed land was near. They dropped a weight line and found that the water was 120 feet deep. But a little later, they measured again and found it was only 90 feet deep. And at this rate, they were afraid that we would soon be driven against the rocks along the shore. So they threw out 4 anchors from the back of the ship and prayed for daylight. Hey, they prayed, see it? They prayed for daylight. Then the sailors tried to abandon the ship. They lowered the lifeboat and thought they were going out to put the anchors from the front of the ship. But Paul said to the commanding officer and soldiers, "You will all die unless the sailors stay aboard." So the soldiers cut the ropes of the lifeboat and let it drift away. Wow, so Paul had some power. They believed him. They believed him. Just as day was dawning, Paul urged everyone to eat. "You have been so worried that you haven't touched food for 2 weeks," he said. Wow. Paul was all calm because he heard from God, right? Everybody else was all shooken up about it, right?
Yeah.
Paul was,
That's the way it is.
that's the way we should be,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
All right. You're so worried. "Please eat something now for your own good, for not a hair of your head will perish." Then he took some bread, gave thanks to God before them all, and broke off a piece and ate it. Then everyone was encouraged and began to eat. All 276 of us who were on board. After eating, the crew lightened the ship further by throwing the cargo of wheat overboard. When the morning dawned, they didn't recognize the coastline, but they saw a bay with a beach and wondered if they could get to shore by running the ship aground. So they cut off the anchors and left them in the sea. And they lowered the rudders, raised the foresail, and headed toward shore. But they hit a shoal and ran the ship aground too soon. The bow of the ship struck stuck fast while the stern was repeatedly smashed by the force of the waves and began to break apart. The soldiers wanted to kill the prisoners to make sure they didn't swim ashore and escape. But the commanding officer wanted to spare Paul, so he let them carry out their plan. You see it? It wasn't Paul's time, so Paul wasn't going to die. Just like us. If God calls you and it's not your time, you're not going anywhere. He will rescue you. And we're all still here. Thank God, right? I guess there's still a plan for us. Right? Yep. When the morning dawned, they didn't recognize it, but they saw the bay, the beach was wandered, and they could get to shore by running the ship aground. So they cut off the anchors, left them in the sea, they lowered the rudders, raised the foresail, and headed towards shore. But they hit a shoal and ran the ship aground too soon. The bow of the ship stuck fast, and the stern was repeatedly smashed, the force of the waves to break apart. The soldiers wanted to kill the prisoners and make sure they didn't swim ashore and escape, but the commanding officer wanted to spare Paul, so he didn't let them carry out their plan. Then he ordered all who could swim to jump overboard first and make for land. The others held on to planks or debris from the broken ship, so everyone escaped safely to shore. Chapter 28. Paul on the island of Malta, moving right along. Once we were safe on the shore, we learned that we were on an island of Malta. The people of the island were very kind to us. It was cold and rainy, so they built a fire on the shore to welcome us. As Paul gathered an armful of sticks and was laying them on the fire, a poisonous snake driven out by the heat bit him on the hand. The people of the island saw it hanging from his hand and said to each other, "A murderer, no doubt. Though he escaped the sea, justice will not permit him to live." Wow.
Wow.
I wonder what they believed in. But Paul shook off the snake into the fire and was unharmed. The people waited for him to swell up or suddenly drop dead. But when they had waited a long time and saw that he wasn't harmed, they changed their minds and decided he was a god. They thought he was the devil, and after he didn't die from the snake bite, he was God after that. That changed their mind quick, right? Near the shore where we landed was an estate belonging to Publius, the chief official of the island. He welcomed us and treated us kindly for 3 days. As it happened, Publius' father was ill with fever and dysentery. Paul went in and prayed for him, and laying his hands on him, he healed him. Amen.
Amen.
Then all the other sick people on the island came and were healed. As a result, we were showered with honors, and when the time came to sail, people supplied us with everything we would need for the trip. Amen? Unbelievable. Let's see if we can get a couple of minutes. Paul arrives at Rome. It was 3 months after the shipwreck that we set sail on another ship that had wintered at the island, an Alexandrian ship with the twin gods as its figurehead. Our first stop was Syracuse, where we stayed 3 days. From there we sailed across to Rhegium. A day later, a south wind began blowing, so the following day we sailed up the coast of Puteoli. There we found some believers who invited us to spend a week with them, and so we came to Rome. Wow, so there was believers scattered everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But when they got together, they helped each other.
Yeah.
Just like there's believers scattered around here, but when they get together, they don't help each other. They go against each other. Total opposite of what the Bible tells us to do. Total opposite. That's why if they only would read these stories, they would see what they would have to do and how they should act with each other. How we should all act with each other. We're all Christians. But no. Okay. The brothers and sisters in Rome had heard we were coming, and they came to meet us at the Forum on the Appian Way. Others joined us at the 3 taverns. Where Paul saw them, he was encouraged and thanked God. When he arrived in Rome, Paul was permitted to have his own private lodging, though he was guarded by a soldier. Boy, he had favor through the whole trip, didn't he? Boy, they took good care of him. God took good care of him. And let me tell you something. God will take care of each and every one of us along our trip, too, if we allow him to. unless we try to take matters in our own hand and not listen to God's voice, or drown it out with your own life.
Yep,
A
amen.
lot of times you won't hear God's voice because you're still wrapped up with your own stuff.
Yep.
So you won't hear Him talking. So it gets drowned out. But Paul was on a mission. He heard from God, and that's all he was doing, and that's all he cared about. He gave his life to Christ, and he died that way, giving his life to Christ.
Amen.
He made a decision, a wise decision too. And we're going to see Paul again. When we go up there,
Hallelujah.
we're going to see Paul.
I want
I'm going to shake his hand when I see him
Can't
too.
wait.
Thanks for penning in the epistles that set us free. All right, we're going to stop there tonight. We're going to pick up with verse 17 when we come back.